Hello, this is Paper Cuts Included coming to you live from the Ninja Turtle sleeping blanket, and that's how you know it's legit. Before we talk about today's book, I'd like to wish everyone a happy 4th of July. Hey, we made it another year as a country. And what better way to talk about our America's birthday than looking at American Flagg #1, a book that might have too accurately depicted what America would be like in the future. But before we get into that, if you're new to the channel, this is a comic book YouTube channel ran by me and my co-host, inspired by the great cartoonist Kayfabe. So if you like comic books, comic book art, art in general, or the history of comic books, you're definitely in the right place. We look at books such as these, put them under the camera, and dissect what it takes to be a working comic book artist in 2025 and what makes a good comic book in the year 2025. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, stick around, subscribe, hit the notification icon. We post twice a week, every week right now. So let's get back to the daily programming though. So we're going to be looking at American Flagg #1 by Howard Chaykin. And but one last time, before we get into it, I'd like to apologize to one of my co-hosts. For years, he was always trying to get me to read one of these. He was a big Howard Chaykin fan and Tim Truman fan, and I always discredited them as, oh, those books are going to be weird, I bet. I was so surprised how much I enjoyed American Flagg. I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for them. I only believe have 6 issues of it, and not that's like issue 1, issue 12. So definitely keep an eye out for it. Definitely check it out if you like cyberpunk art. Excuse me, if you like sci-fi, if you like Americana, it's a great book. This book came out in 1983. Excuse me. Ooh, burp. So came out in 1983, like I said. It is very, you can tell it influenced a lot by some of the things it talks about. I'm sure a lot of comic book artists themselves had a look at this book, such as Frank Miller, Jeff Darrow for the work on Hard Boiled, which would come out maybe 10 years after this, I believe, for Hard Boiled. I'll put a picture of it here. Phenomenal book. But this is proto-cyberpunk, or Michael Pondsmith's Cyberpunk, the tabletop game, Shadowrun. And there's a lot of it. This book is just violence and sex and a critique on American consumerism. So if that sounds like something you like, definitely check it out. I was surprised again how much I loved reading it, and I really want to stay invested in the story. Howard Chaykin, if you didn't know, probably one of the reasons he has sci-fi in his artwork is he studied under the Wally Wood. Now, Wally Wood is probably one of the best ever sci-fi artists in the comic book scene, and I'll actually show off some of his work right here, just in the cover. I bought this book actually like 2 days ago, this Eerie, so pretty cool to just be able to show this. And we can look at that beautiful Wally Wood cover, right? And since he was his assistant, I'm sure Chaykin just soaked it all in. But before we get into the book, let's talk about the cover, because I think the cover is really, really, really cool. Where's my pointer that I used to poke? Oh, there it is. It was under the microphone. Looky there. I think the logo is really cool. I think the image itself, all the American flags just thrown across everywhere. The character is very stoic, really good iconography, great use of text. Like, when you're making a comic book, you need to prioritize a good cover at times, because a good cover can sell your book just on the cover. Some people in art school I knew would only buy comic books if it just had a cool cover. They would never read the inside, but they wanted to support a comic book store every other month, so they would go in and just buy what cool cover. So hey, that could be a percentage of your sales right there, is making sure you have that good cover. So and here it is. Make it interesting enough where someone's going to stop and flip through it. That's kind of the big test. Is it going to look like a boring cover, or is it going to be something that people are going to be like, oh, what the hell is that? I think to me it would be, because like I said, all the American flags mix, the stoic look, it's like, oh, what's going on? And then the text, someone's got to put it all back together. Reuben Flagg just might be the man. So you kind of want to learn more about Reuben Flagg. But now let's get into it. So already starting off, one of the things I want to note is so Chaykin did the first 26 issues, penciled them, created them, came up with the story. That's a lot of work to do. And part of that huge heavy lifting, not only in a first issue, but in a goddamn story itself, is figuring out how your world works. If your world isn't just normal, if it has something weird in it, like here we're in the future, figure out how your world works. How are people going to breathe? How are they going to, what if they turn on the TV, what do they see on TV? And because of this book's themes, a lot of that's important. And one of the ways you can make a world seem more organic and natural, different types of fonts like they're using here. The whole world's not going to revolve around Times New Roman 12-point font double spaced, no matter what my college professor said, right? So that's something you need to keep in mind. One of the little things, like we say on the channel, the little things can make your book transcend the big things. And just utilizing that different font just makes it seem more livable. And we're already seeing the just had a mini stroke. The just abundance of sex, right? A two-way play. You're literally putting a coin in a woman's crotch, right? What does that even mean? And to me, this little joystick down there, that's just a giant dick. I don't know why I see a dick. Maybe it's like a Rorschach test and I need to go like to a doctor or something. But to me, that's just a giant dick. And we're also, the commercialization is up front here. Some of the text is a little hard to see just because of the printing. But Jerry Rig Custom Firearms, Concourse 3, Love Canal Adult Center, and Plexus Ranger section. This book takes place in a giant mall, which we'll talk about more. We haven't met our main character yet. We actually start with the chief and his daughter. Now, we're already getting that relationship. We're getting the stereotypical fiery daughter with the old-timey, chief of whatever. We see it all the time. Think of Jim Gordon and Barbara Gordon and Batman. A common trope, but always a fun trope to do, and usually an easy trope to sell, right? As we're seeing a timer countdown saying "Go Gang," and it's going and going and going down. Another cool element I like to see, again, like when you turn on a TV, what are your characters going to see? We see a priest saying, "I pack one, he packs one, shouldn't you?" Referring to he packs a gun, God's packing a gun, and the gun is called the 66 Magnum automatic, or the Mark of the Beast, which I find interesting that they're calling a priest is trying to sell you a gun that's literally called the Mark of the Beast. I wonder if that's just a commentary on religion getting more relaxed and Chaykin's idea. I think this takes place in 2037, so about 50 years or 50, 60, however that math works. This is the third time I've tried to make this video. We've been having technical difficulties, so don't critique me on that math there. But no, excellent use of the negative space here. Like we talked about, since he did the first 26 issues, that's a shit ton of pages. I think it's 22 pages a book, and let's just say it's 20, right? That's damn near what? So 200, 400, almost 600 pages, right? All original artwork. That's fucking crazy. So again, utilizing, you don't have to make every scene a Jeff Darrow level background, right? You can utilize negative space to save you some time because he himself said he was so damn tired after this project. But no, they're fighting. She storms off. We get a great, figure character right there. A great just close-up of the face. Howard Chaykin's really great at showing emotion, really great at just having detailed character work, even though all of his main characters are just mirror copies of himself. Which, hey, draw what you know, right? And I love the grid artwork here. He does some really interesting panel work in this book. As we see, it's almost like a security camera like view of her. It's close up of her face, and then it goes all the way down to her legs, then to her ass for some reason. I wonder if that's a joke, since this world is so fixated on three things: violence, buying, and sex. Mostly violence and sex, but you have to buy that. Oh, excuse me, I'm having like bad heartburn over here. So I wonder if that's just some sleazy camera operator just checking out her ass, right? And then literally right after it, we get to learn the cat can talk. And I thought he was in charge, but maybe not. I think he might just be in charge. I guess maybe it was a playful. But I really like the lettering right there to the slam. That tight red. This is colored by Lynn Varley also. Lynn Varley was the colorist for Frank Miller on projects such as The Dark Knight, 300. I think she did some Sin City covers. So it's really cool to see her do other work that's not just Frank Miller stuff. She also colored, I think, one of the covers for the Big Guy and Rusty, the Boy Robot, the Jeff Darrow, Frank Miller creation. Um, so really cool lettering. I think the color works a lot more because they're using that negative space as well. I think if it was that TV monitorness a lot, it would kind of get lost. But since there's so much negative space, I wonder if they use that to break that up and keep it busy, but not too busy, which that's a fine balance you need to figure out in your own artwork. And like I talk about, when you're making work, try it 100 different ways, see what works, and more importantly, see what doesn't work. Comic book is not a labor of easiness, it's a labor of love. Like, it might take you a whole year to get a 20-page book out. But hey, once it's out, you're going to be damn proud of it. So we're establishing that a new ranger's coming. The last ranger got killed in some firefight, and this new ranger are Reuben Flagg, as we'll learn. We'll just call him Flagg. Flagg is not a draft dodger, but it was either you join this mall cop position almost, or you go to the front lines. So they're talking about him and one of the other agents or Plexus Rangers. Well, this guy must be some coward if he didn't want to go to the front lines. Or they call it a dog ass, a real dog ass, which, interesting. Again, very expressive artwork and very, like, I feel like that's a Wally Wood thing right there, the droopy cigarette, real interesting. And also the outfit to the Plexus Rangers, it's like a mix of World War II bomber, cowboy, and trucker all in one. I wonder if Tony Moore looked at this for some inspiration for Fear Agent. I'll put a picture up here. Fear Agent's a great book. I think Tony Moore is one of the most underrated artists. We'll talk about him more another day. Let's get back to American Flagg before I get sidetracked. So, they're talking about, oh, this guy's a real dog ass. He chose to come here. And here we see him with some really interesting lettering. They're on a like motorized walkway like you would see at an airport, if anyone's ever been on one, where you can just stand and it carries you along like a floor escalator, but not up, but down. And really cool lettering to see. It gets a little lost here, but it'll be more apparent in a couple panels. And he's asleep. He's already asleep, right? So not only are we talking about him being potentially a coward, or as they say, dog ass, he's asleep on his first day of duty. This, ranger, it's almost like a Texan ranger asleep. And so much so, the Brazilian representative uh, falls, right, and just spills a suitcase. I was trying to see what that read. It was like, damn, I didn't notice that this first reread or read. This is the first time I've ever read this book. But no, I love the suit work, all the body language. The body language is really cool. And another really great when he does close-ups, it's really expressive, and lens coloring really helps it push it to the next level. I wonder, when does she stop coloring it, and what does that next colorist look like, and when we get shots of like this. And also the way he cuts the body off, this isn't a full, like that, like the whole body. It's a hand, the neck, the head. I really like that. It's something I'm going to take away from this book and want to utilize in my own artwork. That's something you should always be looking at when you're reading a book, looking at art. Take something from a book and put it towards your own work, right? It elevates it. You can't just, draw your same repertoire over and over and over again and expect it to work, right? Take inspiration from people, study people, take master studies. That might be a little bit more of the formal art school I had. I didn't go to a comic book art school. I went to just a art school. I'm an art education major. So, that might be more of that artistic side coming out. Also, that says Nexus, which I wonder if that's a little nod to the Nexus series, also by First. And now we get to see who our character is. As he's standing in front of this giant advertisement for himself, right? He's this famous actor, and the show was called Mark Thrust, Sexist Ranger. The provocative adventures of a fearless vice cop walking the mean streets of an untamed and unnamed and sexually transmitted disease-riddled sector of a great urban metropolis. I feel like we're going to get this show in a couple years. This is going to be Euphoria, but when they're adults, right? And the coloring's really cool here. I love how it's framed in these, different color mall signs, which I think we've all seen. And then there's a lot of pink and red in this book, right? I like that a lot. I'm probably going to talk about that more. It really does help. It's very iconic. Some people use colors a lot in a book to make it be like that book's color. One the first thing comes to mind is the color green is used a lot in Dave Gibbons and Frank Miller's Give Me Liberty, which I'm sure this was a direct inspiration for. It's a very similar story. Definitely check it out. One of my favorite and I think more underrated Miller works. But so check it out. Um, Here it is. There's more of that lettering, and I think it's not getting as lost there as it was here. Have you guys can notice that? So just cool. Direct. I love a good directional lettering. Like I've talked about, find yourself a good letterer or become a good letterer. I know I'm probably. What the hell is that sound? I'm probably never going to become a great letterer, so I need to find someone, or maybe digitally it. We'll workshop that one. But I take note on good lettering, and I like that a lot. So now the timer's getting down to the wire, right? At the last, it's in 9 seconds. So what is going on? But before that, we're meeting another new character. Since this is the first issue, you have to meet the cast. You can't just throw the main character into the war and then don't meet anyone, right? Since he's a fish out of water, and that's a good way to do it, you know, we're able to meet people really naturally instead of, say, this is a story that's set in, he's well adjusted already, right? It wouldn't make sense to be like, oh, this is Joe Schmo. I've known him for 3 years. This is everything I know about him, but we're going to act like this is the first time I've seen him, right? So this is the head mistress or madam of the Love Canal franchise, a legalized prostitution with boys and girls. So we're hitting the ground running strong, right? We're establishing that, hey, this is set in Chicago, and there's a love canal that's not only legal but popular, which we'll talk about in a minute. Her costume reminds me of one of the gang members in Ronin, who has the same earrings, and I think in one of the Sin City, um, the Christmas special, Silent Night, there's I think she has both the female and male ones. But again, I would love to see what all comic book artists had these in their collection, what they thought of it, what did they take from it. I like to say, what were the seeds that came from this book that planted and grew into giant oak trees? Was it Give Me Liberty? Was it aspects of Ronin? We might never know, or I guess we'll just have to read some comics interviews. But everyone's got their guns, right? So what's about to happen? I guess they don't say it. I guess we got to turn a page, but we can see the smoke rising, which I love the use of white. Really bounces off good with that purplish and the mistress's outfit. And what is it? Well, it's a full-on attack from Go Gang. So that's why it says Go Gang counting down, because when that hits 0, that's when they come out to play. Excuse me, Go Gang, anarchist terrorist motorcycle club unaffiliated with any of the 74, at last count, political parties legally registered in Cook County. There are 2 local Go Gangs, the Ethical Mutants and the Genetic Warlords. There were 5 Go Gangs. Rumor has it the mutants ate the other 3. So we're also meeting our villains, or antagonists, at least for this part. A motorcycle gang who's coming to attack the mall, because that's what it is. It's a giant mall. Every night they watch this violent TV show, and as soon as it's off the air, they gotta stretch their wings a little bit. So they're coming to attack them all with some great directional lettering, right? The shooting of the gun, the circles there. Again, find yourself a good letter or become a good letter, because it can really elevate your book. And I believe we're seeing that here with it's also the coloring of it, right? Like these white, they're shooting these energy projectiles, right? And just seeing the directional movement of it, really cool. And the fact that the lettering's not, it's different, it's unique. unique lettering can really add to a book, right? It makes the lettering feel unique. It's going to make your book feel unique. So just think of that. And again, all the use of this purple pink hue, I don't know what it is about it, but I really enjoy it. I think it does well to bring in all the neutral and cool tones together so that it's not too sci-fi. This isn't a glitz and glamour, everything's perfect, everything's, all these vibrant colors like in other sci-fi stuff like The Fifth Element or well, the first coloring of Hard Boiled, I would say. Instead, using it neutralizes those colors and I think makes it feel more realistic and just, but still we're in the future, so we are getting those flashy colors. But no, so he saves the daughter, and we're already getting that probably future love interest, right? She's already calling him to call her Mandy. With I love the contours of the shoulder and the arm that really go cut off. I want to copy that panel now, put in something I'm doing. Oh, it was a mosquito flying around. That's what was flying around. And the dad's still right there. And we end this page with him telling her, "Hey, stay away from my daughter." Classic trope getting continued. I'm sure that's going to cause some heartbreak in the next issue or two, but they fend it off Go Gang for the night, so let's see what happens next. And it's going to be an interesting one. Flagg goes back to his new apartment, and someone's waiting for him. We might think it's the daughter, but no, it's the head mistress. And they quickly get down and dirty into it. And this pink reminds me of flesh, so I wonder if that was the purpose of you're using the flesh color for the flesh, right? They're about to get down and dirty. Even she becomes that shade after that, right? So you know, that was a quick sex scene, and he didn't even put the gun on the chair like some Ditko Nick Furies. So we'll see what this character. I bet she's gonna be a villain. I'm reading this with you guys, so who knows? But I can see her selling him out for something. So now I guess the next morning we're gonna see our good old boy in his first uniform first, but not before we see that Nancy, I believe, or Nancy or Mandy. Was it Mandy? Mandy. Mandy and the mayor. And right before good old Flagg gets there, they're already talking about illegal gambling or black market gambling. So not only is there violence every night, easy sex, there's also back alley gambling that's not only legal, but kind of encouraged. Seems like almost like she's literally talking to the mayor and his two robots, Bert and Ernie, his two bodyguards. Which my first reading, I thought these were lights. They did not register to me as robots at all. It's probably my least favorite part of the book is they don't, especially like I just passed through them this first reread. It took me until the next page to like, oh, those are robots. And the first thing the mayor says is, "I loved your show," which the reason he's not at the show is the show got renewed, but he got canceled. The computer was able to generate him into the show for more episodes. Doesn't that sound familiar? This is written in A3, and it's like, man, we're having to worry about like extras in Hollywood still being able to get jobs because now AI might be every extra and every actor. What I think Bruce Willis signed away his like vocal rights, which he has that horrible disease where he can't really talk. So I get that, but to call that out in 83, a little scary. It's like, how far are we away from that doomsday clock? Good negative space there. And I want to talk for a moment about the costume design, at least here. It looks very easy, which is not a bad thing. I want to say why. Like I said, he did the first 26 issues. If that's coming out a buck a month, that's a year, 2 years and 2 months, right? That's a lot of damn work to do while figuring out how to print it, working with people. You're gonna have to develop some shorthand, right? And that might just be this costume. Maybe it was supposed to be more intricate, but you got to give yourself some break and finding out a shorthand for your artwork. You're going to have to do that. And that comes for everything. And it could also come from hours of just sketching, hours of that, this, and that. And you're just going to develop it overall. Mike Mignola has a shorthand for a lot of it. That's the first time I heard of it. when it comes to background scenery. Hellboy has some, shorthand every once in a while. So just develop a shorthand because it'll save you some time. And see, that's when the robots are walking away. And that's my first time I realized, like, oh, those aren't just lampposts. And so now it's like, well, they're going to have to do something, right? I bet they're going to become like giant robots or giant monsters or giant Tesla coils. Like, maybe that was the point. They're so nothing that they're gonna become some giant set piece in like the next story arc or the end of this story arc. So who knows? I'll keep you informed on that. As we're getting some quality time with Flagg and Mandy, as she's already calling out like, "Oh, you slept with that lady, isn't it?" Right? And she looks pretty angry about it, calling her the Grand Canyon instead of the Jaws 8. We can get the cat talking. The dad comes back, and they're going to go on their first day out with some great directional movement right there. Probably one of the few just basic color themes right there, which I believe that use directional movement in lettering when you can, because without that, this panel might be really ineffective of selling flight or direction, hence directional lettering, right? Whereas here, we'll start here as an audience, go, 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 and then we see that black outline, right? And now we're getting the meat and potatoes of the lore of this city. They go over a firefight. Flagg's like, oh, we have to call this in the cops. There's a goddamn firefight. And the chief's like, nah, it's great for views. All this war, all this carnage is televised and is the number one show on their network. The Mall is a direct recorder of it, right? So they're not going to stop their top selling show, but there's rules that I'm sure are going to be broken. The rules are no aircraft, no nukes, no combat in commercial zones, such as the Mall, and of course, no suburban adventurism, right? That's some of the things you do is set up those rules so you can break them to greater effect in the next few issues, right? It doesn't matter if you break it and set it in the same issue, but perhaps having a little bit of a payoff, setting it up in the first issue, so maybe in 2 or 3 issues you can break that. Like, is the Mall going to get nuked? That's the first thing I think about. And just, think of that when you're designing books. Really, I love the character designs. This is, I believe, the religious faction. Yeah, and there's 75 registered paramilitary clubs in Chicago. So 75 militias just going at each other every day, and it's getting broadcasted. And it's so popular, other countries, I believe they say Rio just started theirs, and it's a hit. So, it's not just a local crazy like convict fight, right? This is spreading all over the world. Love the coloring's really good in the backgrounds. I'm always amazed how much color can do to a book, right? Like, black and white books are amazing. Sin City is one of my favorite books for a reason. I really love the black and white artwork at Return to New York Book 1. That was last week's video. Definitely check that out if you haven't yet. It was really good. But coloring just, there's a reason coloring can be so hard. And it's because it makes your book, it elevates it at times. So now we're just getting more of the lore as, another interesting part. He's fighting in front of I guess this is a brothel, right? White sluts on whatever, thrills, chills, pills, right? As he's stopping a code red, a unfortunate incident in progress. So, we're mixing violence and sex, right? Since that's the main two drivers in this America's purpose. We're establishing he's having to deal with that every day and not liking it. This is not a character who is jumping in and just being like, oh, I'm so part of it, which I was a little afraid it was going to be like when I first picked up this book. But I'm glad to see it's not. And then he says the lore, starting from 1996, the year of the domino, events such as the massive crop failure, the USSR collapses and Islamic insurrection, What else? Oh, Iran Israel nuke exchange. That's a little too close to home in today's climate. If you know what I'm talking about. But getting that lore out really quickly and seamlessly. I've read books where a whole issue is just going to be the lore, and usually those issues suck if they're not done right because they're so goddamn boring. Whereas this book, it does it in, directly in just 4 pages and it's done, and they'll expand on it more. But this is a good starting point. It really gets the audience aware of what the world is, how is the world going to react to a lot of things, right? And it's a really interesting way to do it with all these little panels, all this negative space with the black. We're establishing there's a Mars, a lunar base, and Earth like city, right? So it's cool how they're setting all these up seamlessly, you know? And then a cool thing is all these characters are talking about the problems. And then we see this one random one. He's not the same. Well, it turns out no more lore time, right? This is the one of the leaders, or maybe just the leader of the Go Gang. And he has an arrangement with the other ranges, or the ranger before Flagg, right? When I come in, you pay me 1,000 each week, and I'll shoot high. I'll miss you on purpose, which I don't believe because his jacket looks a lot like Flagg's without the red, white, and blue. But no, Flagg pays him and is kind of accepting, like, oh, I guess this is the status quo. Well, crap. So he goes home to just take a load off, watch TV, and, almost like some you know, Rodney Piper's coming in because he puts on the number one show, the show that the Go Gang love to watch, and they always go to kill him right afterwards, Bob Violence. And while watching Bob Violence, it gets some subliminal messaging. Kill, multi, death, sex, attack, right? So, in that another part of the puzzle that just subliminal messaging. So maybe it's not just TV that's causing these guys to act crazy. It's the messaging, like spinning you know, a Motley Crue record in reverse, and it says "Hell Satan" or some random thing like that. So this book has a lot of things that were being talked about in '83, right? The subliminal messaging, another 10 years and what, or maybe 15, and that's when video games are going to be under the spotlight for being too violent, or I guess less, because once Mortal Kombat comes out, whenever that does, or I guess that might be late 80s, early 90s, Mortal Kombat, and it's, oh my god, our kids are going to want to rip out each other's spines, we have to ban video games. And then all the Doom stuff, and then the Call of Duty stuff later. So it's cool to see in '83 Chaykin just start to talk about that, and it's so light back then, and it just gets progressively worse as we like age, right? Like I said, the video games, television, like TV was so different in '83, where now we have Euphoria with, Sydney Todd or whatever the hell her name is, like topless in every other scene. Or in '83, this book was scandalous, and I'm trying to think what scandalous movies there would have been in '83, but I'm too young to name any, really. Oh, not Jaws. I can't say Jaws. I don't know. I don't know what I'd put. The only thing I can think of is Princess Leia not wearing a bra in New Hope, but that's just teenage me having a crush on Carrie Fisher. But yeah, so he sees the subliminal messaging. He has to go like, oh, I bet people don't know about it. Goes to the chief. Chief doesn't know about it. He's like, I'm not seeing anything. But you can see clearly that, Flagg can see it, so why can't the chief, right? So another common trope, the main character can see something, but no one else can. Not really. The talking cat can, Raul, right? So getting more of that, continuation, right? How is that gonna play out, right? Is he gonna stop him? Is this just part of the lore that's never gonna end? So what? Right? And just another really expressive face. Another really good just frontal shot of the costume design. And again, it looks really simple, and that might just be to save time and just have a shorthand of the character, to spend more time on these very, emotional, very energetic. None of this book is stagnant, but I say that, but um Like, you do have stagnant poses, but it makes sense because that's when the lore is being talked about. That's when the rules of the book are being talked about, right? And so it makes sense not to be too actiony there, or else it's not going to flow right. But when you are needing that, our characters interacting, it is very energetic. It is very, you know, expressive. I guess not as energetic as most books would be, but not enough where I'm like, oh, this is crap. This book is far from crap, and I'm real surprised by that. Like I said, I dreaded reading this because I assumed it'd be shit. I feel so bad thinking it would have been shit because I really like this. One of my favorite franchises is Cyberpunk 2077, and this really reminds me of it. So no, Go Gang's already back with some great use of colors. Flagg's had enough, right? He's not going to accept the world for, sex, the violence, everything. Now he's literally seeing go kill people on TV. He puts on some literal brass knucks, puts on this real interesting riot shield, and go beats the guy who he had the arrangement with, right? He's taking him in. He's not going to let, it's like his Batman moment. He's not just going to let it slide, right? With great power comes great responsibility. I know that's not Batman, that's Spider-Man. Don't, oh my god, you said the wrong superhero thing in the comments. I've had people like that. Oh my god, I don't, some people. But no, just this, very energetic. The coloring's really cool here with all the pinks, all the, and the neutral tones. It really just makes it an interesting spread. And that's how you color. You make it interesting. But no. So he arrests him. But yeah, and now they're talking about, well, we gotta get rid of Bob Violence, right? Maybe this gang won't attack us if we get rid of it. And the chief's like, oh no, you can't get rid of it. What they attack because it just goes off the air every night. How are they gonna react once it's gone for good? Like, that's crazy, right? And the daughter comes in with that's okay. I forgot time passes. She goes from like her Robin Hood outfit to that reminds me a lot of Wally Wood for some reason. Like looking at, you know, this lady right here. I don't know why it reminds me of it, but just that 60s sci-fi, like, you know, baddie with a body, like it just reads to me as that. But no, potentially to spite her dad a little bit and, get favors with Flagg, who I'm sure that's going to be the main love interest. Unless she dies. I could see her dying. Oh, turns out as a ranger, you have the authority to turn it off because that was the chief's big thing is we don't have the authority even if we wanted to. We're owned by the corporation. They are the police of the mall, but they are owned by the corporation, which is a theme explored in a lot of cyberpunk things, right? And such as, like I just mentioned, Cyberpunk 2077, the corpos own like 90% of the world, right? And we see that more and more, like in Ronin, the Frank Miller. What was is it Artemis? It's not Artemis, whatever. Aquarius, right, is the main thing in Ronin. It's like this big corporation that's called the lifeblood of New York, right? So we're seeing again, what do the seeds of this book sprout into giant oak trees? But no, he goes to turn it off, takes a little plane, crawls up it, not too much of these 2 pages, once and turns it off. He turns Bob Violence off, and as soon as it turns off, the Go Gang's coming after them. Right? It wasn't even 5 seconds. He's getting called. What the hell's going on? I'm sure even he has deals with the Go Gang, and he's the chief. And that's how you end an issue, right? It's oh, ooh, to my throat got stuck to my tongue. Or however the hell that works. I've been talking too long. But yeah, so they're coming after him. So that's a great way to end issue 1. Set up the world. Issue 2, automatic violence. Right? We're gonna start probably with a giant action scene, and the next issue is probably gonna end on a cliffhanger because I believe the first story is only 3 issues, so 3-month story. So real effective way of doing it. I'm definitely coming back to pick up issue 2. I think if I read this off the newsstand, I'd come back. I'd probably put it on my pull list if I saw it today. I wish I could put it on a pull list. There's no local comic book stores in my area, which is sad. So go support your local comic book store until you turn into me. Um, but yeah, so story and art, Howard Chaykin, lettering, Ken Brucenak, coloring, Lynn Varley, and editing, Mike Gold. So pretty cool team coming together, made a real interesting book. I liked it a lot. I hope you guys liked me talking about it. Again, if you like cyberpunk or sci-fi themes, definitely check this book out. I enjoyed it a lot. Again, I'm definitely probably going to look at an issue of this a month. That's how much I enjoyed it. It has some really cool art, or at least check it out until Chaykin's gone from it, or maybe a few issues afterward to see how they compare. But no, the last thing I want to show before we kind of end this video is this amazing Judge Dredd ad on the back. I love me some Judge Dredd. We might have to look at Judge Dredd at the same time to see how a British comic book artist also does Future America, because Chaykin's American, and Judge Dredd and it seems like American Flagg are gonna be different but similar in a lot of ways. So that might be a fun Friday video. Compare the two. I'm gonna have to do that. That will be a good video. I'm glad I said that. But if you made to the end of this video, thank you. If this is something you like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what's working. Let me know what's not working. Is the audio getting better? Is the video doing better? We're trying a new setup, and I'm trying to be better. But it's been great so far coming back from our hiatus. We've been doing amazing view-wise and watch time-wise. So thank you guys. We couldn't do without the support of viewers like you. So check out our other videos if you haven't already, and check in next Tuesday when we continue our Turtle Tuesday watch through, and check out Return to New York Book 2. So I'm going to send you on some marching orders. I'm going to get to the drawing table. Make more art.